Welcome to Mindful AI, the podcast where we explore how to create AI that is beneficial to humanity, ethical, and promotes human values and flourishing. In today's episode, we interview Rasmus Hougaard. Rasmus is the founder and managing partner of Potential Project. He was nominated by Thinkers 50 as one of the 8 most important leadership thinkers in the world today. In this episode, Rasmus shares research and real-world examples that reveal how AI can actually amplify human qualities and create more compassionate organizations. We also discuss how AI acts not just as a tool, but as an active agent, reshaping the way we approach leadership and human resources. If you find this episode insightful, please subscribe to Mindful AI and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring more of these important and meaningful conversations to you and others. And there we live, or recording at least.
Okay, here we are. So welcome, Rasmus. Thank you so much for accepting to be our very first guest in the Mindful AI podcast. What an honor. So I'll go through your official bio and then we will get started with the conversation. So Rasmus Hougaard is the founder and managing partner of Potential Project. He was nominated by Thinkers 50 as one of the 8 most important leadership thinkers in the world today. He writes for Harvard Business Review, Forbes, Fast Company, and Fortune. He's a sought-after keynote speaker and leadership developer who coaches and supports C-suite executives at global organizations such as IKEA, Accenture, Citi, and Unilever. Rasmus is also a co-author of the best-selling book, The Mind of the Leader. How to lead yourself, your people, and your organization for extraordinary results. And also compassionate leadership.
I'm impressed, Nat. I'm very impressed.
How to do hard things in a human way. So jokes aside, it's an absolute honor to have Rasmus here. Rasmus, for those who already listened to episode 0, we had a chat, myself and Martin. Rasmus is the reason why we connected. So we used to work under Rasmus' leadership in the past with Potential Project. So that's how we actually met, myself and Martin. So welcome, Rasmus. Thank you so much. And look forward to the conversation. Over to you, Martin.
Yeah, I don't. First of all, is there anything you'd like to add to the bio or anything about your background that we missed there?
Anything that maybe the listeners, something that is not your LinkedIn in your Potential Project website that people would actually not find out about you on the web. Perhaps something more personal. Yeah, the human side
Something
of
more
Rasmus.
personal would be that I'm let's say a meditation practitioner, a Buddhist practitioner for 30 years. And that's how Martin and I met. And Nathalie, I believe that's also what somehow brought you into Potential Project. So the whole wisdom tradition, leading and doing long-term retreat is something that has been my biggest passion throughout my life, and also informed the work that we'll be talking about today. So that is definitely a big part of it. And I would say Martin has been a very good, close friend and brother in that journey for 15 years at least, something like that.
At least 2010.
Yeah.
So 15 years. Give or take a year.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. I just recently had the opportunity to give a presentation on this idea of mindful AI for 3M. And one of the ideas that I introduced is this possibility of actually using AI as a way of strengthening some really human qualities. So potentially using AI to help us raise self-awareness and those kind of things. And so you've written a couple of articles for Harvard Business Review, and you touch on this subject on how to use AI to kind of augment leadership and introduce those kind of human qualities. So could you elaborate a little bit on what's going on?
Yeah, very happy to, and very passionate about it. But the preamble to that is when ChatGPT was launched and it was clear that AI was out of the box for the mainstream, I was super scared. Like I was literally deeply, deeply skeptical. I thought that AI was going to lead us down to dystopian, robotic, mechanical, dark future where people at work would be sitting in dark basements being told what to do by AI. And while there's a real risk that it will also go that way, what we have found through our research is that the exact opposite is also possible. So our purpose is to create a more human world of work. And AI can become a real amplifier in that journey in so many different ways. And it's been deeply, deeply fascinating to hearing the stories of how companies are actually using AI to create more human organizations, to create better leaders, and have lots of great stories that I can share in that regard.
Yeah, that's I think that's a great place to start. Because I guess AI is, like you said, is out of the bottle now, or the box, Pandora's box, and it's not going back in. And every single company needs to relate
Mm,
to AI. So it would be really interesting to hear some of the success stories in relation to, yeah, ethics and
mm.
human values, if you some of
Yeah,
them to
yeah,
share.
absolutely. I can start with one of them, and for all of these stories, let's use the analogy that AI has the potential to become like an exoskeleton, as in this contraption we can put on that makes our muscles stronger. Uh, AI can do the same for the mind and the heart of human beings. I'll tell one story, which was one of the really inspiring for me. Was Ellen Shook, the chief HR of Accenture, one of the biggest, or the biggest tech firm in the world, probably, who shared that she would used to spend like 1 hour to prepare for a performance review conversation. So 45 minutes to gather all the data from the different systems, 10 minutes to like structure it well, and then the last 5 minutes to like rehearse what she would say. Now with this AI performance review coach, she'll literally just press one button and out she gets a report that she'll just like skim through. There's all the data there and so on. And then she will spend the rest of that 1 hour to ask herself much deeper questions. Where is the person at in life? Where are they at in their career? If she really senses into her intuition, like what's their next developmental stage? And a really important question, how does she want people to leave that conversation? What is the feeling, the emotion that she wants people to leave the annual review conversation with? So it's a real shift from managing people and tasks to suddenly leading an experience, leading emotions, seeing humans as the whole humans that they are. And this is just a simple, basic performance review AI coach. And that's just one example of how incredibly powerful AI can be to augment and support our leadership to be more human oriented.
Great story. Thanks for sharing, Rasmus. So, what I'm hearing here is, and having worked for Accenture myself, I remember the performance review process could be very, very lengthy and cumbersome. And I think it's much shorter now, But anyhow, so saving time with the data analysis, which is actually one of the key strengths of AI, processing all the data, and then using that time instead of massaging the data and running reports and everything to reflect on actually what's going on here, what's the situation with this individual, and thinking more about the human aspects. Um, so that's a beautiful example of how can AI can be used, in a very mindful and useful way. As you mentioned before, AI can. There are still those two scenarios, right? I think even researchers they're very divided. We have the very optimistic, talking about the golden age, leveraging AI, and we have the more pessimistic who have maybe the realists in between, if you could maybe classify in that way. And you mentioned that AI can amplify, can be a big amplifier. So in terms of using AI, make sure how can leaders, if there is an answer for that, how can leaders ensure that we are using AI in an ethical and responsible manner? Um, yeah, given the potential, slight different directions that we could go. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. So how leaders can make sure that we use AI in the most ethically correct way. They can't. Only companies can. Preamble for that is you said AI being a tool that can amplify, and that's true. That is what AI is. It's a tool that can amplify, just like a hammer. And a hammer we know can be used for building shelters so we have roof over our head, or it can be used to
Mm,
knock someone on the head and do bad things, just like any tool. Though the difference with AI is it's not a tool. You can use it as a tool, but in its essence, it's more of an agent. If we look at tools, the way tools have been designed up until a few years ago, they were, let's call them passive tools like a hammer, a shovel, an email, whatever. All of those things were just sitting there and waiting for a human to tell it what to do or to do with it what you wanted it to do. AI, while it is reactive, as in a passive, you can use it in a passive way, it's also an active. Anybody that has Copilot will know that it's already reading your emails, it's recommending what you respond, it's prompting you to do things that you wouldn't have thought about. So it's an active, it's an active agent rather than a passive tool. And that's why the responsibility for using AI in ethical ways is actually not very much up to the leader, him or herself, because they have little agency in changing the agent. Rather, it is, of course, the tech departments of companies, but more so, it's the HR. What HR needs to make sure that they do the first, like, most important is, of course, all the ethical considerations, getting all the consent and having absolute 100% transparency. I talked about Ellen Shook and Accenture before. The system that they've built, when I talked to her about it, I was like, what do people think about this? And she said, well, people actually have 100% access. People can, before she pulls her data, the person she pulls data on has the same access to look at that system as she does, and also has the ability to remove data from there if they think that that's the right thing to do. So transparency is 100% important. If we don't have that, nobody will trust in AI. And I think we should learn to trust AI because it has great potentials, but it will require incredible collaboration. So it's coming down to HR more than anything else, that they do it in the right, ethical, transparent, data privacy considerations way.
Thanks, Rasmus.
Mm.
I really want to pause, shut up, and give a chance to Martin to jump in and ask a question, because I'm sure he will have like 10 questions in his head. But just based on what you said, Rasmus, if I may, and I'll zip after this. When you started, I thought that, I know, I guess, when Rasmus is going on, because I think that's probably my projection. AI can only be as ethical as the people behind it. And I was
Yep.
thinking about the tech, the tech developers, solution architects, project managers, designing and developing AI. And that's one of the areas that I think we look here into the Mindful AI podcast. We want to talk to data scientists and machine learning experts, because until we have robust, solid governance frameworks in place and legislation, which is still catching up, who is actually in the front line? They are making decisions. These people are making decisions, right? But for my surprise, you mentioned HR, which is very interesting. So, and how you position AI being a active versus a passive agent. That's very interesting. Just thinking out loud. I'll zip now. Thank you. Over to you, Martin.
I'll just one comment on it to really make clear how serious I am about this. AI is two things. It is an amplifier of effectiveness. And that's a tech, like that's just something that tech and IT people can take care of. That Copilot is installed and trained the right way so that people can save time. But the much more important is all the areas where AI serves as an agent in all the human processes. That is 100% an HR function. And therefore, HR functions in the future, are already today, have to really, really, really educate themselves and become experts in how to design HR functions, leadership development functions, culture processes through AI, because that is by far the most powerful way that you can secure you have the right culture and right leadership behaviors in the future.
And yeah, now you don't just you don't have to sip it on my account. But it is true. I'm storing like a backlog of comments and questions as this progresses. So I one thing one thing you mentioned in these articles is the capacities of awareness and wisdom and compassion. And so one of the things I've been just thinking about is if these are things that AI could actually be helpful in us developing. And I've been thinking, for example, I would if I had an AI that received the same kind of sensory input as I do, heard the same things, saw the same things, and then watched my behavior, maybe that AI could point out that potentially I have a unconscious bias to, I don't know, obese people or elderly or people of other ethnicities, whatever it might be. And it can actually confront me with those things and say, hey, look, you have these unconscious biases, and that could then help me develop more awareness, more self-awareness, and more. So do you agree with that kind of function for AI in the future? And have you seen any seeds of that kind of thing?
Yeah. Two answers to that. One is yes, AI can actually do that. And let me give an example of a company that's doing that well. Two, those qualities that you talk about, awareness, wisdom, and compassion, I'll come back to those, why they're so important. And no, AI can ultimately not help us to train those. So it's a little bit like the exoskeleton. While it makes us stronger, when we take it off, we're not stronger anymore. So for that reason, AI doesn't really ultimately make us more that, but it can alter our behaviors. So let's come back to the example. CVS, which is I believe is the largest pharma firm in the world, have developed AI for many of the leaders and client-facing leaders, which, and I can't share too many details, but imagine a meeting that's happening online. You have an AI agent that's sitting and analyzing the emotional sentiment of the person that you're talking with. So let's say Martin and I are having a conversation. I may not be the most emotionally intelligent or empathetic person. So I may not pick up on some of the words that I'm saying is actually making Martin feel uncomfortable. But because of, our emotions showing up in the facial expressions and so on, a good AI, and that's pretty much any AI today, has more empathy and emotional understanding than most humans, will pick up on that very, very easily. And it will prompt me with a little like script down in the screen that Martin can see, but that I can see. Hey, Rasmus, you may be aware that what you said before makes Martin go a little bit in defense position, or it just made him sad, or he's upset. Here's a recommendation for you to say the following. And then with all the algorithms of empathy and emotional intelligence that AI like objectively does have, it can help me to moderate my behaviors to make sure that Martin feels better cared for. So that's an incredible, I find that just deeply fascinating, because we know that there are many leaders that are not emotional intelligent or very empathetic. It's very hard to be a leader. We should not point finger at those leaders. Not all human beings have those skills in the same amounts. So it's not about, are you a good or a bad leader because you have those skills or not? No, it is, how can AI help you to develop more awareness of those areas of your leadership? And AI can 100% do that. That's amazing. The three areas that you talked about, Martin, awareness, wisdom, and compassion, are indeed the three core ingredients for leaders in the future. We did the first study we did was in the age of AI, where things will be more automated, more robotic, and so on. What's the most important qualities for leaders? It was indeed awareness, wisdom, and compassion. Leaders with higher awareness, wisdom, and compassion have employees that have, and I'll just throw some numbers, 97% higher trust in company leadership, not just in their own leader, but in the company leadership. which has the ripple effects from peer-reviewed studies finding that product quality, financial performance, many other things for the company is increased significantly. And there's a whole host of other benefits that came out of these leaders as rated by the employees. So it's a real powerhouse for leaders to up their game on those areas. And therefore, the other part of the equation of AI and leadership, apart from using let's say the tech to help me be more emotionally intelligent when I'm talking to Martin, is how do we help me? How does HR leaders help each individual leader to be more aware, more compassionate, and more wise, so that they can bring that into the leadership in a world that is more robotic?
So how do you train those specific qualities? I guess that's not necessarily related to AI, but it seems to be really important in leadership in general, and I guess it might be becoming even more important in the age of AI. So how would one go about? It is great to have them.
I suspect you know the answer, Martin, but I suspect
You want to go, Martin?
No.
Yeah. So there are the core of the study was really to find out what's the most important leadership qualities and how do we augment ourselves with AI. The three most important leadership qualities are awareness, wisdom, and compassion. The question is, how do we then bring them into play with AI? And when it comes to awareness, the role of leaders in the future in the realm of awareness is to be excellent in mastering context. Human leaders must set context and let AI deliver content. Humans in the future will not be delivering content anymore. It's just a matter of years. It'll not be a thing anymore. So humans need to be really excellent setting context. When it comes to wisdom, human leaders need to be really good in asking the right questions to the right things, and let AI provide answers. And when it comes to compassion, human leaders need to always check with the heart, what is my intention for the person or the people that I'm with? And then leverage the power of the algorithms of AI to make sure that our behaviors or our intention is translating into right behaviors. As an example I had before with me having a conversation with Martin. So that means it's not just awareness, wisdom, and compassion, but it's also the implications of that, which is to be good at setting context, asking the right questions, and checking in with the heart all the time. And then we, in the study, we looked at what are the underpinning mindsets. So now I'll just give you an exhaustive list of 15 mindsets. To be aware and master context, leaders need to have adaptability, self-mastery, equanimity, presence, and clarity. And to be good at questions and wisdom is about critical thinking, beginner's mind, selflessness, humility, and integrity. And finally, to master the heart and have great compassion is about trust, courage, resilience, purpose, and emotional intelligence. So those are basically the three foundational qualities and the 15 underlying mindsets that we see leaders in the future need to master if they want to be relevant and good in the age of AI. Now, that was a lot of talk. I'll just shut up.
Yes. I have 5.
Sorry, before you go, Nathalie, I just want to say we'll extract those 15 from Rasmus and put them, I don't know, in the comment or the description of this episode, so that because my brain isn't AI augmented yet, so I couldn't keep track of it.
We'll make sure that our next Harvard Business Review article I think it'll be coming out in early November. So you can also make a link to that if you want.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. We'll link. We mentioned already a couple of articles. We'll make sure that they're all linked in the episode description and all of that. Sorry,
No, not at all. Oh, wow. Two questions that I can still remember that I didn't lose as listening to Erasmus. One was around, which is really the tagline of this podcast, how to advocate for human values in AI. So one question that I had for you before, but now is actually evolving here, if we were to train AI, as you know, AI models can be trained, whatever, information we put in, it learns and it goes beyond what programmers actually understand how far AI, the AI models are going. So if we were to train AI to learn core virtues, core human virtues, and character strengths or virtues, however we want to call, some of those mindsets you mentioned, courage, integrity, and so on. What would be a good framework to use? And I think we mentioned before that Martin Salomon had put together, as a result of his research, the 24 universal character strengths, other the six virtues. So that's one question. And another question that came to mind, and maybe you choose, Rasmus, which one you would you like to answer? It's around decision making, because AI is making decisions right now in sectors like education, government services, insurance, and so on. So yeah, so I think is kind of related to that. So those human values or mindsets, how can we actually embed those? Because decisions are, we have the human in the loop. Stuart Russell, which is one of the researchers in the AI field, he's a big advocate of having humans in the loop when a big decision or a crossroads it's met. But smaller, simple decisions can be made by AI. So yeah, so how can we enable AI with those mindsets and human virtues? And if we were to do that, what do you think, based on your extensive knowledge, what could be a good model, if any, or framework?
Yeah. I don't think that there's one model or one framework that's the right. I think it's important that different AIs are fed with different synthetic frameworks, as in you feed information into an AI and say, this is, let's say, the AI's freedom to choose based on the context with which it is asked. And I think it's also very important that there are actually different, like by nature, different DNA of AI out there. If you take and ask the same, if you do with ChatGPT, you get very different answers. And it is us as humans that need to learn which AI to go to for what kind of questions. If there was just one AI that was trained in all the same things, we would all become one big, horrible echo chamber. So I'm not a fan of that. Having said that, when it comes to training on emotions, I think the examples you had are great. Paul Ekman's work on the universal emotions, I think, would be a fantastic starting point.
Thank you.
Yeah. So and just tying on to that, one thing that you hear a lot is how important it is to develop ethical AI, and obviously it is, but it's very seldom that you hear people go into any detail as to what they actually mean when they say ethical. It's like it becomes this little placeholder, and then everyone is saying yes, it needs to be ethical, but there might not even be agreement. But so just as for me, as a really pragmatic definition of what is ethical is not harming people, and contributing to well-being and flourishing. So that's the basic. But then on top of that, as humans, when we do that, we need to, like you said, we need to check our intention. So intention is really key in relation to ethics. So if, for example, if I give you a present, but if my intention is to manipulate you, it's not ethical. But if my intention is to make you happy, then it's fully ethical. So we have the intention piece, and then the final piece is the wisdom and the clarity, because even if we have good intentions, if we lack the wisdom, we just tend to mess things up. So that's a long preamble to my actual question, which is, can we? So the intention and the wisdom part, is that something that we can convey to AI, do you think, or are those something that will remain in the human domain? I don't know.
Yeah. clearly we can convey that to AI. It's just, AI is nothing but what we train it to be. And granted, it does get more and more complex and will need more and more training as models grow bigger and bigger. But the seeds that we put into AI, the way we train it determines how it responds and how it reacts with us. And it is very, very important that AI is, of course, made with the right ethical considerations, like should never give advice on, let's say, how to take a life, which it, at least those models that I'm working with, they just refuse to go there. I actually had a terrible situation. I was working at an animal shelter in India for a while, and there was a little monkey that had been electrocuted by electric masts, fallen down. It was still alive, but his arm was dead. The doctor didn't know how to take it off. They didn't know how to, like, they couldn't find any drawings or anything. And I thought, great, I find answers to everything on ChatGPT, but it simply wouldn't give me, even though I know it has access to those kind of things, it wouldn't give that. That to me is ethical, even though it's, of course, it was super annoying. So I think it's just very, very important that we as humans program it in these early days of AI in ways that we want it to function, because it is shaped, mirrored on how we shape it. And as with any other baby that grows up, they will start to have a life of their own. And the same will happen with AI. It will be harder and harder to control because the models are bigger and bigger. So the first seeds are the most important.
Mm.
Mm.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah, and
the
then
interesting question, at least in my context, is also when companies or organizations, institutions start to develop their own AI based on already existing AI platforms, how do they create the ethics that they want in there? And this is something that we talk to a lot of our clients about when they start to adopt, whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT enterprise version. Like, how do they train it to have the right values, to have the right ways of giving feedback, the right culture, and all of that stuff? That's super, super exciting.
Hmm.
yeah, and I mean it's already one really basic conundrum that's arisen is that, we train these by necessity. We train these large language models on copyrighted materials, and then we have lots of artists and musicians and so on feeling that they have their rights being violated. So we're causing potential harm to those groups of people, but we're bringing potential huge benefit to other groups of people, and that's happening right now. We can't train those things without
Yeah.
violating
No,
people's copyrights.
impossible,
So
impossible. Personally, being the author of many books and having given tons of talks and all of that, because it is accessible for AI, is impacting the answers that AI gives. I'm very happy about that. I may lose money, but I'm very happy that our thoughts on leadership, on ethics, on compassion is part of impacting AI. Happy to let go of my coffee right there.
yeah, right. I'm very happy that you don't letting your royalty payments trump that input into the models.
Oh, one such a nice pause. A little bit of solace is good, isn't it? Talking about solace. Um, One thing that came to my listening to you just before, Rasmus, is the talk. There was a keynote from a lady called Shannon Vella. I hope I'm mentioning her name correctly. A researcher from Edinburgh University. She was here at Melbourne Uni in April this year. And she delivered the keynote and was talking about her book called AI Mirror, which was in essence, I mean, I guess my interpretation was around the fact that AI is basically is a reflection of where humanity is in a way, the content, in terms of content.
Sure.
Which leads me to the point that I mentioned earlier, that AI models and AI solutions can only be as good in terms of ethics as the people that are behind
Sure.
um, those projects initiatives and and HR actually coming up with requirements, as you said,
Mm. Yeah.
which kind of makes me think of the work that potential project does, and you do with been doing over the last 10, 15 years more now, I guess. um which is like, for me, is like a full circle back to the humans, right? AI is great, but
Yeah.
if we really want to make AI ethical, and in terms of governance, I think having worked in the governance space for business intelligence, data analytics in the past, it's great to have rules, but not necessarily rules will make sure that people are following those rules, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
those frameworks. So um, yes, I'm just thinking out loud. Don't know if there is anything that you like to comment. I don't have a question as such, but just a reflection on your comment before that AI content would be a reflection on where humanity is, which
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think makes a priority to go back to humans again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And as it does that, and as
upgrading.
we know, humanity is not necessarily at its best when it's engaging with the digital realm. Don't need to talk about any particular social media, but obviously all of them are examples of how it's just the lowest common denominator with the worst trash and
Mm.
filth and making us deeply, deeply unhappy. So
And intentionally triggering our worst base emotions and instincts.
all of that,
Yeah.
like it has everything that's bad for humanity. There's no doubt about it. Also has good things, I'm sure. Not sure what it is, but has definitely downsides there. So, what is it that humans need to contribute in the future as AI is getting better and better and better, more knowledgeable, better answers than any human being? We as humans need to really double down on vertical development, as in, if we want to be relevant, if we want to add value in the future marketplace, whether we're leaders or employees, we need to start with a mind that's very clear and calm, see the bigger picture, has the wisdom to step away from knowledge and answers and ask the right questions. So, in the future of work, where AI is taking over more and more, the competitive advantage of humans is the spaciousness, the depth of our minds, and the warmth of our hearts. Period.
Mm. Yeah, that actually that gets me thinking about um, something that I find a bit troubling. Um, Not those things you mentioned. I don't find them troubling at all. I agree that that's what's going to be needed. But what I find troubling is that I often hear experts in the field even saying, that they say once AI reaches AGI, or artificial general intelligence, and then they continue the sentence with, and thus have feelings, emotions, and
Mm.
consciousness, then we will. So there's this, and there was actually a recent study that came out that surveyed people that are interacting with ChatGPT, and 2/3 of them attributed some kind of consciousness to this chatbot that they were interacting with.
Mm.
And I just from my personal perspective on that, I don't think consciousness will pop out of, even, it doesn't matter how sophisticated those algorithms will be, consciousness will not suddenly magically pop out of them. AGI might, intelligence is even at this point a question, will we reach that kind of goal? I don't even know, but certainly I don't think we'll have conscious machines that feel and intend and uh, all those things. I don't know. What's your take on that? Do you think it's dangerous that we ascribe already consciousness to these algorithms?
I think the algorithms are dangerous. That's my first answer. there's so many predictions on where AI is going to go. A lot of it is going to do us great good in healthcare, in leadership, in so many areas. But it's not without reason that some of the biggest AI experts in the world are really cautioning the use of it. And even someone as reckless as Elon Musk has been warning humanity against AI for so many years. So I think AI in itself is problematic, let alone the climate impact and everything. But I think it's problematic. But when it comes to consciousness, I think it's wonderful engineering, tech nerd wishful thinking to think that AI will have, there's no doubt it will have free will, and it will have like intelligence at levels that are far surpassing any human being or any sentient being that has ever existed. I have no question about that. But there's a very big leap from being intelligent or having intelligence and into consciousness. Consciousness doesn't arise out of nowhere. Emotions doesn't arise out of nowhere. There has to be someone that can actually feel things. And algorithms, which AI is, cannot feel things. It can tell itself it can feel things, but it can't feel things. So I'm not so worried about that. It's not, I don't believe it's going to happen. Though there was one movie that really troubled me. Now I can't remember the name of it. And for any listener out there, if you want to understand AI, don't read, just go and watch all the great AI movies. There's a movie that came out recently, I can't remember the name, but which has the most incredible plot twist, which was basically AI were the monks that were sitting in monasteries up in the Himalayas, that AI were the ones that actually had the deepest emotions and the greatest care for others. And humans, as we know, that were symbolized by the US Army, of course, were just the ones that were ruthless and effective and everything else. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah. And that
That's
movie
exactly
was The
yeah.
Creator. I
Beautiful
believe.
movie. Yeah.
That's the title.
Well, going back to Rasmus' previous state, I thought was so beautiful. I thought we should just finish this episode there, with the statement that you made before. But thanks for your question, Martin. And something that came to mind listening to you just then, Rasmus, was this, I think it's Life 2.0 or Life 3.0 from Max Tegmark. I don't know if you came across the book. Max Tegmark is a big research in the AI field, and his book, I think, is very balanced. Life 2.0 is a must. Check it out if you can. He articulates, the view of the optimist, the pessimist, and he calls that there is still time. As you mentioned, there are both ways. There is still time for us to get it right. But yeah, there's a lot of risk with algorithms, as you said. So yes, I think it was good to hear that from you. That I feel that I'm not alone. That you also have concerns about algorithms, and as much as there are wonderful things that AI can do for humanity. We need to be very, very, very mindful, very careful about the direction it's going. Yeah, and that's evolving governments, organizations, and and that's actually what I wanted to share with you. Yuval, the author of *Sapiens*, when he was interviewed by Tim Ferriss in his podcast, Tim Ferriss podcast a few years ago, when Tim Ferriss asked him what was his major concern around history of humanity, and Yuval being, Yuval, having studied the history of humanity for so long, so among climate change, advance of AI, and nuclear, a risk of a nuclear war. Yuval responded that AI was his main concern because we have so many organizations in the rush to advance AI without really necessarily thinking about the consequences. While climate change, we don't have anyone trying to accelerate. Nuclear war, we don't have anyone trying to accelerate. But AI, we have the four largest companies in the world trying to win the race, let alone governments as well. Yeah. So just
I
wanted to
think
share. And
AI
on
is
that
out of
issue.
AI is out of the bottle, out of the box, whatever we call it. There are so great capitalist interests for this to be furthered that there is no chance, there is zero chance that AI will be stopped. Zero. And there is zero influence that all of us normal mortal beings can have on it. We can impact maybe a little bit how it's implemented in our company or how we engage with it ourselves, but ultimately it is so far out of normal people's control and within the control of very few men, and I'm saying men very deliberately, that where this is going is just one big experiment that we have no idea how it's going to end. Just like with social media, and we've seen it hasn't done good for us. It hasn't lived up to its promise. I personally doubt AI is going to do it. But I will also say we can't fight against it. There's nothing we can do, so we might as well learn and enjoy the ride.
I, I, I think also as we get, yeah. So this is, I guess, the question I'm trying to formulate. So I'm the CEO of a software company, and I got lots of programmers working, and they are getting massively helped by AI. And then you think, a task that would take them 2 days before, now they can do in 2 minutes. And initially I thought that's great because then, more free time for humans. But then the usual thing tends to happen. So instead of now we do 32-minute things in an hour, and we constantly just keep filling up with work anyway. So yes, AI is making us more efficient, but then we just cram more work in. And I think personally, it's great if AI takes a bunch of our tasks and our jobs and our work, because then maybe if we make that choice, we can have more space to cultivate exactly the things we talked about. And lean into it means to just be human and explore this wonderful experience, and not just cramming more shit in there. But where do you think that is going? Do you think we'll take our free time and use it, or do you think we'll just kind of become hyper effective and even more and more busy because of AI?
I can talk at it only from a company perspective, like what are companies doing? And I've talked with probably a good 150 CEOs, chief of HR, and chief of learning. Everybody acknowledges that AI is a new email. In that email came with the promise we're all going to save a lot of time so that we can do more important things. But nobody's doing more important things. Everybody's doing less important things, more emails, more busyness. So when I asked them the question, I've asked every single one of them, do you have plans to make sure that AI does not just become a new email? Only one has answered yes. The CHRO of IBM, Nickel, actually has implemented the first structure or process in IBM whereby when leaders save time through AI, that is directly funneled into higher value work, as in having a particular conversation with a particular person in the area where you save that time. That's the first story I've heard. And given I've talked to so many, I am a little worried that not more people have thought about that yet. So I'm not too optimistic.
Yeah, and I tell my employees that if you feel that you've saved an hour, just feel free to use that hour for something that you find meaningful, and
Martin, you're a very, very poor capitalist. You're a very poor capitalist. Yes. I wish there were more like you, but I doubt it.
Yeah. Well, I think hopefully we will be able to do what we haven't been able to do so many times before, and take the opportunity to not just become more and more busy because of AI. But I guess we'll see.
We will see. That's the mantra. We will see.
I'm getting conscious of time, and I don't know if it's nearly time to wrap up. Conscious of Rasmus' time more than anything. I just wanted to say that, of course, I could not expect anything less. But thank you so much for your very sincere, honest, well balanced, sharings, Rasmus. It was very refreshing and very insightful. So yeah, thank you for making time to talk to us about this very hot topic, and very very relevant to really, not exaggerating, to future of humanity, really. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I truly enjoyed this conversation, and as I said, we will post the links to the things we've mentioned, and people can go to potentialproject.com if they want to know more about your work. You're on LinkedIn if people want to follow you there, and so on and so forth. I don't know. Is there any particular thing you would like to mention in terms of what people can, where they can turn if they want to connect with some of your work, or does that cover
LinkedIn,
it?
potentialproject.com, probably the best ones. Yeah.
Buy
Yeah.
Rasmus books. They're available. They're available.
Yeah.
They're available on Audible.
I thought you got it from. I was thinking maybe you're selling them because you had them.
No, I'm just very biased. I give those books to my clients. That's how the welcome pack. Here it is. Do your homework, and then we can talk. Get some foundation right.
Well, beautiful to have the conversation with the two of you who are well versed in all areas of the conversation today. Really nice to see both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully you'll, even though you try not to travel, you make it to Melbourne sometime, and we could maybe have a second follow-up conversation face to face.
Out there.
That would be lovely.
Would love that.
Take care.
Take
Be
care,
well,
both.
Rasmus. Thank you.